This act may be called the Customs Act 1962. This clause officially gives the law its name. In legal documents, notifications, and court cases, it is referred to as the Customs Act 1962. Though, extent, applicability, it extends to the whole of India. This means the Act applies throughout India, including all states and union territories, territorial waters of India, customs ports, airports, land customs stations. It governs import and export of goods across Indian borders. In customs law, India also includes territorial waters up to 12 nautical miles, certain customs-controlled areas beyond land borders, as notified. 3. Commencement. It shall come into force on such date as the central government may, by notification in the official gazette, appoint. This clause authorized the central government to decide the date on which the act comes into force. Notify that date through the official gazette. Practical point. The Customs Act 1962 came into force on 1st February 1963 as notified by the government. Summary table. Clause. Meaning. Short title. Official name, Customs Act 1962. Extent. Applicable to the whole of India. Commencement. Enforced from a date notified by central government. Why Section AK is important. Establishes legal authority of the Act. Defines geographical jurisdiction. Confirms that customs law is a central legislation uniformly applicable across India. Section 2 is the definition section of the Customs Act 1962. It explains the meaning of important words and expressions used throughout the Act. These meanings apply unless the context otherwise requires. Below is a clear, exam, and practice-oriented explanation of the most important definitions under Section 2. Key definitions under Section 2. 1. Customs area. Sec 2, 11. An area where imported or export goods are kept before clearance by customs. Includes customs ports, customs airports, warehouse, container depots. Importance: customs control applies only within a customs area. 2. Customs port. Sec 2, 12. A port appointed by the central government for loading export goods, unloading import goods. Example: Nhava Sheva, Mumbai port. 3. Customs airport. Sec 2, 10. An airport appointed for import-export of goods by air. Example: IGI Airport, Delhi. 4. Customs station. Sec 2, 13. Includes customs port, customs airport, inland container depot, ICD, land customs station. Wider term covering all customs locations. 5. Goods. Sec 2, 22. Includes vessels, aircraft, vehicles, stores, baggage, currency, Indian foreign. Very wide definition. 6. Import. Sec 2, 23. Bringing goods into India from a place outside India. 7. Export. Sec 2, 18. Taking goods out of India to a place outside India. 8. Importer. Sec 2, 26. Any person who imports goods or holds himself out as importer or is owner beneficial owner at the time of import. Even a beneficial owner can be treated as importer. 9. Exporter. Sec 2, 20. Person who exports goods or holds himself out as exporter. 10. Dutiable goods. Sec 2, 14. Goods on which customs duty is leviable. 11. Duty. Sec 2, 15. Customs duty leviable under Customs Act 1962. Any other law in force. 12. Foreign going vessel aircraft. Sec 2, 21. A vessel or aircraft engaged in carriage of goods or passengers between India and a foreign country. 13. Warehouse. Sec 2, 33. A place licensed under the Act where imported goods may be stored without immediate payment of duty. Section 3 of the Customs Act 1962. Levy of additional duty, countervailing duty, CVD. 1. Purpose of Section 3. Section 3 is meant to ensure parity between imported goods and goods manufactured in India. If an imported article were allowed to enter India without bearing domestic taxes, like excise GST, it would get an unfair price advantage over Indian manufacturers. To prevent this, additional duty of customs is levied. 2. What does Section 3 provide? When goods are imported into India, in addition to basic customs duty, BCD, an additional duty is charged which is equivalent to the duty tax leviable on a similar article if produced or manufactured in India. In simple terms, imported goods should bear the same indirect tax burden as locally manufactured goods. 3. Nature of additional duty, CVD. Known as countervailing duty, CVD. It counterbalances central excise duty, earlier regime, or GST Bata compensation cess, post-GST regime, as applicable. 4. How is the rate determined? Identify a like article manufactured in India. Apply the same rate of duty tax as applicable to that article. If no such article exists, rate applicable to most similar article is used. 5. Valuation for additional duty. Additional duty is calculated on assessable value plus basic customs duty. So, it is not only on invoice value, but on value including BCD. 6. Important subsections. Brief. Section 3. 1. Main charging provision for additional duty. Section 3. 1A. Valuation rules for calculating additional duty. Section 3. 2. Rate determination when excise duty is specific compound. Section 3. 3. Power to levy additional duty on subsidized imports. 7. Practical example. Imported product value AV 1 lakh रुपए. Basic customs duty at the rate 10%, 10,000 रुपए. Value for CVD 1,10,000 रुपए. Excise GST equivalent rate 18%. Additional duty CVD 18% of 1,10,000 रुपए 19,800 रुपए. Section 4 of the Customs Act 1962 useful for CA Customs Broker departmental exams. Section 4 Appointment of officers of customs. Legal provision in simple terms. Section 4 empowers the Central Board of Indirect Taxes Customs CBIC to appoint officers of customs and assign them specific powers and duties under the Customs Act 1962. Who appoints customs officers? CBIC, Central Board of Indirect Taxes Customs, earlier known as CBEC. What does Section 4 provide? Ek power to appoint officers. The board may appoint the following or any other officers of customs. Principal Chief Commissioner of Customs, Chief Commissioner of Customs, Principal Commissioner Commissioner of Customs, Additional Joint Deputy Assistant Commissioners, any other class of officers, Superintendent, Inspector, Preventive Officer, etc. Though assignment of powers duties. The board or a commissioner of customs may assign specific functions to officers, limit powers to a specific area, port, airport, or case. An officer can exercise only those powers which are officially assigned to him. 3. Territorial jurisdiction. Officers may be appointed for a customs station, port, ICD, airport, land customs station, a region, zone, or entire India, depending on notification. Practical examples. A preventive officer is appointed to check smuggling at ports. A superintendent is assigned powers under Section 110, Caesar. A commissioner issues adjudication orders under Section 122. All such appointments and powers are valid only if backed by Section 4. Section 5 of the Customs Act 1962 Powers of Officers of Customs. Customs Act 1962. 1. What Section 5 deals with? Section 5 empowers the Central Board of Indirect Taxes and Customs, CBIC, and senior customs authorities to assign functions and powers to officers of customs. In simple terms, it answers the question, which customs officer can do what work? Though, who can assign powers? Under Section 5. CBIC, Board, Principal Commissioner Commissioner of Customs, can assign powers and duties to customs officers. 3. Main provisions of Section 5. 1. Assignment of functions. The board or commissioner may assign any function under the Act to any officer of customs or any other officer subject to conditions. Example, power to issue show cause notice, SCN. Power to assess duty. Power to conduct search or seizure. Though, concurrent powers. More than one officer may be given same powers over the same area or subject matter. Example, both preventive officer and appraising officer may be empowered to act on the same consignment. 3. Hierarchy does not restrict action. Even if a senior officer also has power, a junior officer can validly exercise his assigned power. Meaning, just because a senior officer exists does not invalidate the action of a properly empowered junior officer. 4. Practical significance, very important for litigation. Section 5 is often used in disputes related to jurisdiction, validity of SCN, authority of officer issuing notice or order. Common litigation point. SCN is invalid because it was issued by an officer not properly empowered. Courts check whether power was assigned under Section 5, whether proper notification order exists. 5. Key judicial principle. If an officer acts without proper assignment of power, the action may be void. Proper notification or authorization is crucial. 6. Simple one-line summary. Section 5 allows CBIC and commissioners to decide which customs officer can exercise which power under the Customs Act. Section 6 of the Customs Act 1962 Entrustment of functions of board and customs officers to certain other officers. 1. What Section 6 is about, in simple words. Section 6 allows the central government to entrust customs functions to officers who are not customs officers, such as officers of other departments or agencies. In short, non-customs officers can perform customs work if officially empowered. 2. Who can entrust the functions? Central government, through a notification. The notification specifies which officers, e.g., DRI, GST, police, etc., which customs functions, conditions and limitations, if any. 3. Who are certain other officers? These may include officers of Directorate of Revenue Intelligence, DRI, GST Bata Central Excise. State police are the central government departments. Once entrusted, they're legally treated as customs officers for those functions. 4. Nature of powers entrusted. Functions that may be entrusted include search, seizure, investigation, issuance of show cause notice, SCN, subject to notification case law. Powers are not automatic. They must be specifically entrusted. 5. Litigation importance, very critical section. Section 6 is frequently invoked in disputes involving DRI jurisdiction, validity of SCN issued by non-customs officers, authorization challenges, typical objection raised. The officer is not a proper officer under the Customs Act. Courts examine whether entrustment notification under Section 6 exists, scope of powers entrusted, whether officer qualifies as proper officer under law. Section 7 of the Customs Act, 1962, appointment of customs ports, airports, etc. Customs Act, 1962. 1. What Section 7 provides? Section 7 empowers the central government to appoint places where import and export of goods can legally take place under customs control. In simple terms, goods can be imported or exported only through notified customs locations. Though, who appoints these places? Central government, by notification in the Official Gazette. 3. Types of places that can be appointed. Under Section 7, the government may notify customs ports, seaports, customs airports, land customs stations, LCS, for land borders, inland container depots, ICD, customs freight stations, CFS. Each place is notified for specific purposes, import, export, or both. 4. Legal effect of Section 7. Import-export outside a notified place is illegal. Goods moved through non-notified locations may be treated as smuggled goods. Customs procedures, assessment, examination, clearance apply only at Section 7 places. 5. Practical litigation relevance. Section 7 is important in cases involving illegal import-export, smuggling allegations, jurisdiction of customs officers, validity of clearance at ICD CFS. Common dispute. Goods were cleared from a place not notified under Section 7. 6. Link with other sections. Section. Role. Section 4. Appointment of customs officers. Section 5. Assignment of powers. Section 6. Entrustment to other officers. Section 7. Appointment of customs locations. 7. One-line exam summary. Section 7 authorized the central government to notify ports, airports, and other places where import and export of goods can legally occur. Section 8 of the Customs Act, 1962, power to approve landing places and specify limits of customs areas. Customs Act, 1962. 1. What Section 8 deals with? Simple meaning. Section 8 empowers the Commissioner of Customs to approve landing places within a customs port airport and specify the limits of the customs area. In short, it decides where exactly goods can land and which area is under customs control. Though, who exercises the power? Commissioner of Customs. Through orders approvals, not central government notification. This is an administrative power, unlike Section 7 which is exercised by the central government. 3. Approval of landing places. Even within a notified customs port or airport, Section 7, goods can land only at approved landing places. These may include specific jetties, wharfs, docks, designated cargo terminals. Landing goods at a non-approved place is a violation. 4. Customs area, meaning a customs area is an area of a customs port airport ICD CFS, where imported or export goods are stored, examined, or cleared, which remains under customs control. Examples: cargo terminals, examination yards, warehouse inside port limits. 5. Legal consequences. Goods unloaded outside approved landing places may be treated as illegally imported. Unauthorized removal from customs area can attract confiscation, penalty, prosecution. 6. Practical litigation importance. Section 8 is relevant in cases involving illegal unloading, short landing bata pilferage, jurisdiction disputes, smuggling allegations within port limits. Typical objection. Goods were not landed at an approved landing place under Section 8. 7. Relationship with other sections. Section. Purpose. Section 7. Appointment of ports airports LCS. Section 8. Approval of landing places customs area limits. Section 34. Control over unloading of imported goods. 8. One-line exam summary. Section 8 authorize the Commissioner of Customs to approve landing places and define the limits of customs areas within notified ports and airports. Section 9 of the Customs Act 1962 power to declare certain places as warehousing stations. Customs Act 1962. 1. What Section 9 provides? Simple meaning. Section 9 empowers the central government to declare places as warehousing stations where imported goods can be stored without immediate payment of customs duty. In short, it authorizes places where bonded warehousing is permitted. Though, who declares warehousing stations? Central government, by notification in the Official Gazette. 3. What is a warehousing station? A warehousing station is a notified place where imported goods are deposited in a customs warehouse. Customs duty payment is deferred. Goods remain under customs control. Types of warehouse declared later under other sections. Public warehouse, private warehouse, special warehouse for notified goods. 4. Purpose of Section 9. Facilitate trade and logistics. Reduce immediate duty burden. Allow importers to store goods, re-export, clear goods later for home consumption. 5. Legal importance. Goods can be warehoused only at places notified under Section 9. Warehousing at a non-notified place is illegal. Forms the foundation for warehousing provisions, sections 57 to 73. 6. Link with other sections. Section. Role. Section 7. Appointment of Ports Airports LCS. Section 8. Approval of landing places customs area. Section 9. Declaration of warehousing stations. Sections 57-58. Licensing of warehouse. Section 68. Clearance from warehouse. 7. One-line exam summary. Section 9 empowers the central government to notify places as warehousing stations for storage of imported goods without immediate payment of duty. Section 10 of the Customs Act 1962 power to appoint customs ports, airports, etc. as customs stations for specified hours. Customs Act 1962. 1. What Section 10 covers? Plain meaning. Section thus empowers the Commissioner of Customs to fix the working hours during which customs stations, ports, airports, ICDs, LCS, etc. will function for import-export and customs clearance. Simply put, it decides when customs work can be done at a notified place. Though, who exercises the power? Commissioner of Customs. By order notification, administrative order. Unlike Section 7, place, and Section 9, warehousing station, Section 10 deals only with timing. 3. What can be specified under Section 10? The Commissioner may specify days of operation, hours of operation, e.g., 9 am to 6 pm. Different timings for import clearance, export clearance, examination, loading, unloading. 4. Special permission beyond normal hours. Clearance outside notified hours is generally not allowed. However, the Commissioner may permit overtime clearance, 24/7 operations at specified stations, usually subject to request by importer-exporter, payment of prescribed fees, overtime charges. 5. Legal practical significance. Section 10 is important in cases involving clearance done outside working hours, validity of examination loading, claims of unauthorized clearance, demurrage but delay disputes. Typical issue. Goods were examined or cleared beyond notified hours without permission. 6. Relationship with nearby sections. Section. What it deals with. Section 7. Appointment of customs ports airports. Section 8. Landing places customs area limits. Section 9. Warehousing stations. Section thus. Working days hours of customs stations. 7. One-line exam summary. Section 10 authorized the Commissioner of Customs to fix the working days and hours for customs operations at notified customs stations. Section 11 of the Customs Act 1962 power to prohibit import or export of goods. Customs Act 1962. 1. What Section 11 means? Simple words. Section 11 empowers the central government to prohibit, completely ban, or restrict the import or export of specified goods. In short, government can stop or control what goods come into or go out of India. Though, who exercises this power? Central government, through notification in the Official Gazette. The notification may prohibit absolutely or permit subject to conditions, license, quota, compliance, etc. 3. Reasons for prohibition restriction. Prohibitions may be imposed for purposes such as security of India, prevention of smuggling, protection of human, animal or plant life, conservation of foreign exchange, safeguarding domestic industry, compliance with international obligations, public interest. 4. Absolute versus conditional prohibition. Absolute prohibition. Import-export not allowed at all. E.g., narcotic drugs, counterfeit currency. Conditional prohibition. Allowed only on fulfillment of conditions. E.g., license, NOC, quantity limits. 5. Legal consequences of violation. If goods are imported-exported in violation of Section 11, goods become prohibited goods. Liable to confiscation. Importer-exporter liable to penalty. Possible prosecution. 6. Practical litigation importance. Section 11 is central to disputes involving prohibited versus restricted goods, import without license, confiscation under Section 111/113, penalty proceedings, common defense issue. Goods are restricted, not prohibited, hence redemption fine applicable. 7. Relationship with other laws. Often read with Foreign Trade, Development Regulation, Act, DGFT notifications Bata FTP. Customs enforces prohibitions once notified under Section 11. 8. One-line exam summary. Section 11 empowers the central government to prohibit or restrict import or export of goods in public interest through notification. Section 12 of the Customs Act 1962 Dutiable Goods. Customs Act 1962. 1. What Section 12 says, simple meaning. Section 12 is the charging section of the Customs Act. It provides that customs duty shall be levied on goods imported into or exported from India at rates specified under the Customs Tariff Act 1975. In short, if you import or export goods, customs duty applies unless specifically exempt. 2. Scope of levy. Import duty on goods imported into India. Export duty on goods exported from India, only on notified items. Duty applies at the time and place prescribed under the Act, linked with Section 15. 3. Rate of duty. The rate and valuation bases are not in Section 12 itself. They are as per Customs Tariff Act 1975. Relevant notifications, exemptions, concessional rates. 4. Exemptions. Even though Section 12 imposes duty, duty may be exempted wholly or partly by Central Government notifications, Section 25. Hence, charge exists, but collection may be nil due to exemption. 5. Why Section 12 is crucial. It is the foundation for customs revenue. Without Section 12, no duty can be levied. Frequently cited in assessment disputes, exemption cases, valuation and classification matters. 6. Relationship with nearby sections. Section. Role. Section 11. Prohibition bata restriction of goods. Section 12. Levy of customs duty. Section 15. Date for rate of duty. Section 25. Exemption from duty. 7. One-line exam summary. Section 12 levies customs duty on all goods imported into or exported from India at rates specified in the Customs Tariff Act unless exempted. Section 13 of the Customs Act 1962 Duty on pilfered goods. Customs Act 1962. 1. What Section 13 says, simple meaning. Section 13 provides relief from customs duty when imported goods are pilfered before clearance for home consumption or warehousing. If goods are stolen while under customs control, no duty is payable on the pilfered goods. 2. Conditions to get duty relief. Duty is not payable if all these conditions are satisfied. Goods are imported goods. Goods are pilfered, stolen. Pilferage occurs after unloading but before clearance for home consumption or clearance for warehousing. Goods were under customs control at the time. If these conditions are met, duty is automatically remitted. 3. What is pilferage? Pilferage, theft of part of the goods. Usually refers to small-scale stealing, not destruction or accident. Important distinction. Pilferage, Section 13, duty not payable. Loss destruction, Section 23, duty remission subject to conditions. 4. What Section 13 does not cover? Section 13 does not apply when goods are lost due to accident, fire, or natural causes. Goods are pilfered after clearance. Goods are pilfered after warehousing clearance. Goods are short-landed, covered under Section 116. 5. Practical importance. Section 13 is commonly used in port-airport cargo pilferage cases, disputes on duty demand despite theft, claims by importers where part cargo is missing. Customs cannot demand duty on goods never received by the importer due to pilferage. 6. Relationship with nearby sections. Section. Subject. Section 12. Levy of customs duty. Section 13. Duty on pilfered goods. Section 23. Remission on lost, destroyed goods. Section 45. Custody of imported goods. 7. One-line exam summary. Section 13 grants relief from customs duty on imported goods pilfered before clearance for home consumption or warehousing. Section 14 of the Customs Act 1962 Valuation of goods for purposes of assessment. Customs Act 1962. 1. What Section 14 means? Simple words. Section 14 lays down how the value of imported or export goods is to be determined for charging customs duty. Customs duty is calculated on the assessable value, and Section 14 tells how to arrive at that value. 2. Core principle, transaction value. Under Section 14, 1, the value of goods is normally the transaction value, i.e., price actually paid or payable for the goods. When sold for export to India, imports, or export from India, exports. This is accepted if conditions are satisfied. 3. Conditions for accepting transaction value. Transaction value is accepted when buyer and seller are not related or relationship does not influence price. Price is the sole consideration. Goods are sold in the ordinary course of trade. All required additions are made. 4. Additions to transaction value. Certain costs are added to the invoice price, such as commission brokerage, packing cost, royalty license fee related to goods, transport, insurance, loading handling charges up to place of import, any other amount paid as a condition of sale. These are added as per customs valuation rules. 5. When transaction value is rejected. If transaction value cannot be accepted, valuation is done sequentially under rules, such as identical goods value, similar goods value, deductive value, computed value, residual method. 6. Exchange rate. Conversion of foreign currency into INR is done at exchange rate notified by CBIC, not RBI rate. 7. Legal practical importance. Section 14 is the backbone of valuation disputes, under-invoicing allegations, transfer pricing related imports, related party transactions. Most customs litigation revolves around Section 14 valuation. 8. Relationship with other provisions. Section. Subject. Section 12. Levy of customs duty. Section 14. Valuation of goods. Section 15. Rate of duty tariff valuation date. Valuation rules. Method of determining value. No. One-line exam summary. Section 14 provides that customs duty shall be assessed on the transaction value of imported or exported goods, subject to prescribed conditions and rules. Section 15 of the Customs Act 1962 date for determination of rate of duty and tariff valuation. Customs Act 1962. 1. What Section 15 says? Simple meaning. Section 15 fixes the relevant date for deciding the rate of customs duty and the tariff value applicable to imported goods. In short, duty rate depends on when goods are cleared or when documents are filed, not when they are ordered or shipped. Though, different situations applicable date. A. Goods cleared for home consumption. Date of filing bill of entry or entry inwards if later. This is the most common case. B. Goods cleared from a warehouse. Date of filing ex-bond bill of entry, not the date of original import. Duty rate can change while goods are warehoused. C. Other cases, e.g., goods not cleared properly. Date of payment of duty. 3. Why Section 15 is important. Determines which duty rate applies when rates change. Critical in budget day imports, warehousing cases, disputes on higher lower duty. Even if goods arrive earlier, a later filing date may attract higher duty. 4. Relationship with other sections. Section. Subject. Section 12. Levy of customs duty. Section 14. Valuation of goods. Section 15. Date for rate of duty. Section 68. Clearance from warehouse. 5. One-line exam summary. Section 15 determines the applicable rate of customs duty and tariff value based on the date of filing the bill of entry or ex-bond bill of entry, as the case may be. Section 16 of the Customs Act 1962. Date for determination of rate of duty and tariff valuation for baggage and other cases. What Section 16 says, in simple terms. Section 16 specifies the date on which the applicable rate of customs duty and tariff value will be determined in cases not covered by Section 15, mainly baggage and certain special situations. In other words, when goods are not cleared through a bill of entry, like personal baggage of passengers, Section 16 tells us which date's duty rate will apply. When does Section 16 apply? Section 16 applies mainly to passenger baggage, goods imported-exported in special cases, situations where Section 15 is not applicable. Section 15 applies to goods cleared for home consumption, warehousing, etc. Section 16 is a residual provision. Relevant date under Section 16. For imported goods, like baggage, the rate of duty and tariff valuation applicable shall be the rate in force on the date of payment of duty. This is different from Section 15, where the date is linked to filing of bill of entry or entry inward of vessel. Key takeaway in one line. For baggage and similar cases, customs duty is charged at the rate prevailing on the date when duty is actually paid. Practical example. Passenger arrives from abroad with dutiable goods. Arrival date 10 March. Duty paid on 12 March. Budget changed duty rates on 11th March. Applicable duty rate in force on 12th March. Because duty is paid on that date. Comparison with Section 15 for clarity. Particulars. Section 15. Section 16. Applies to regular imports exports. Baggage other special cases. Basis date. Bill of entry inward. Date of payment of duty. Common use. Commercial imports. Passenger baggage. Section 17 of the Customs Act 1962 Assessment of Duty. What is Section 17 about? Section 17 lays down how imported or export goods are assessed to customs duty. It introduced the concept of self-assessment by the importer-exporter while giving powers to customs officers to verify, reassess, or conduct provisional assessment. Key provisions of Section 17, simple explanation. 1. Key cap self-assessment by importer-exporter. Sec 17, 1. The importer or exporter must self-assess the duty. Assessment is done in the bill of entry, imports, or shipping bill, exports. Duty is calculated based on classification, HSN, valuation, rate of duty, exemptions, if any. This shifted the system from customs assessed to taxpayer assessed, similar to GST income tax. To key cap verification by proper officer. Sec 17, 2. Customs officer may verify the self-assessment. Verification can include examination of goods, checking documents, testing samples, seeking further information. Verification is risk-based, not mandatory in every case. 3. Key cap reassessment by proper officer. Sec 17, 4. If the officer finds the self-assessment incorrect, he may reassess the duty. Reassessment can be due to wrong classification, undervaluation, incorrect exemption claim, wrong rate of duty. 4. Key cap speaking order on request. Sec 17, 5. If duty is reassessed, importer-exporter may request a speaking order. Customs must issue a reasoned order within 15 days. Important for appeal and litigation purposes. 5. Key cap provisional assessment. Sec 17, 6. When assessment cannot be finalized immediately, provisional assessment is allowed. Due to missing documents, pending test reports, valuation disputes, goods may be cleared after, execution of bond, furnishing security. Final assessment is done later under Section 18. Practical example. Importer files bill of entry declaring value 10 रुपए लाख, duty 2 रुपए लाख. Customs finds undervaluation, reassesses value to 12 रुपए लाख. Duty becomes 2 रुपए 40 पैसे लाख. Importer can pay duty, ask for speaking order, file appeal if aggrieved. Section 18 of the Customs Act 1962 Provisional Assessment. What is Section 18 about? Section 18 allows provisional assessment of duty when the final assessment cannot be completed immediately due to lack of information, documents, or need for tests inquiries. It enables clearance of goods without delay, subject to safeguards. When is provisional assessment permitted? The proper officer may allow provisional assessment if any of the following apply. Importer-exporter requests it because required documents are not available, e.g., invoice details, contracts. Information needed to determine value, classification, or rate of duty is pending. Proper officer deems it necessary. For example, chemical technical tests are required. Valuation doubts exist. Classification needs expert verification. Conditions to be fulfilled. To avail provisional assessment, the importer-exporter must execute a bond in prescribed form for the difference between provisional and final duty. Furnish security, bank guarantee cash deposit, as required by the officer. Finalization of provisional assessment. The proper officer must finalize the assessment within 6 months from the date of provisional assessment. This period can be extended by Principal Commissioner up to a further 6 months. By Chief Commissioner beyond 1 year with reasons. Interest implications. If final duty, provisional duty. Interest is payable by importer-exporter from the date of clearance till the date of payment. If final duty, provisional duty, refund arises. Interest is payable by customs on the refund subject to provisions. Legal effect. Provisional assessment is temporary and not final. Appeal rights arise after final assessment, not merely on provisional orders. Widely used in cases involving valuation disputes, SVB matters, and test-based classification. Simple example. An importer clears chemicals, but lab test reports are pending. Duty is assessed provisionally against a bond plus bank guarantee. After test results, the assessment is finalized. If duty increases, importer pays balance plus interest. If duty decreases, refund with interest. Section 19 of the Customs Act 1962 Determination of Duty for Warehoused Goods. What does Section 19 deal with? Section 19 explains how the rate of duty and tariff value are determined for goods that are warehoused under the Customs Act. Core rule: essence of Section 19. For warehouse goods, the rate of duty and tariff value applicable shall be the rate and value in force on the date when the goods are actually removed from the warehouse for home consumption, not the date of import or the date of warehousing. Why this section is important? Warehousing allows deferment of duty payment. Duty liability is crystallized only at the time of clearance from the warehouse. Any change in duty rate or tariff value during the warehousing period directly affects the duty payable. Key points to remember. Applies only to warehoused goods. Relevant date of ex-bond clearance, filing of ex-bond bill of entry. If duty increases during warehousing, higher duty payable. If duty decreases during warehousing, benefit available to importer. Simple example. Goods imported and warehoused when BCD 10%. At the time of clearance from warehouse, BCD becomes 15%. 15% duty will apply, as per Section 19. Section 20 of the Customs Act, 1962, Re-importation of goods. What is Section B about? Section 20 deals with re-importation of goods into India, that is, goods which were earlier exported out of India and are later brought back. Textual essence of Section B's. If any goods which were exported from India are re-imported, then such goods shall be liable to customs duty and other charges as if they are imported goods, unless specifically exempted by the central government. Key points explained. Simple language. Re-import treated as fresh import. When exported goods come back to India, they are treated as normal imports for duty purposes. Customs duty payable. Basic customs duty, BCD, IGST, compensation cess, etc. may apply. Government exemption possible. Central government may grant exemption or concessional duty through notifications. Conditions usually attached. Exemptions are generally subject to proof of earlier export, identity of goods, time limit, e.g., returned within a specified period, purpose, defective goods, repairs, exhibitions, etc. Common practical situations of re-import. Situation. Example. Defective goods returned. Machinery exported but returned due to defects. Goods sent for repair. Equipment sent abroad for repair and returned. Export rejected. Buyer rejects goods. Exhibitions Bata fairs. Goods sent temporarily and returned. Testing Bata sample. Goods sent for testing and returned. Relevant exemption notifications, very important. Re-import exemptions are mainly provided under Notification No 9496 kas. Notification No 452017 kas. Subject to conditions under Rule 5 of Customs, import of goods at concessional rate of duty rules were applicable. Illustrative example. A company exports machinery worth 10 lakh rupees. The buyer finds it defective and returns it to India. On re-import, customs duty is leviable as if it is a fresh import. However, if exemption conditions are fulfilled, full or partial duty exemption may be allowed. Section 21 of the Customs Act, 1962, power to make rules. What Section 21 says? Section 21 empowers the central government to make rules for carrying out the purposes of the Customs Act, 1962. In simple words, while the Act lays down the basic legal framework, Section 21 allows the government to frame detailed procedural rules needed for practical implementation. Why Section 21 is important? The Customs Act cannot contain every minute procedure. Section 21 provides flexibility to issue rules as and when required. These rules give operational clarity to customs officers, importers, exporters, and other stakeholders. Scope of rule-making power. Under Section 21, the central government may make rules relating to, among other things, procedures for import and export of goods, assessment and valuation methods, clearance, warehousing, and transshipment, forms, declarations, and documents, manner of levy, collection, and refund of customs duty, control and regulation of customs areas. Such rules are generally notified through the official gazette. Examples of rules made using Section 21. Many important customs rules derive authority from Section 21, such as customs valuation rules, baggage rules, courier imports and exports rules, warehousing rules, drawback rules. These rules supplement the Act and are legally binding. Legal position. Rules made under Section 21 must be consistent with the Act. If any rule conflicts with the Customs Act, the Act will prevail. Courts recognize rules framed under Section 21 as subordinate legislation. Section 22 of the Customs Act, 1962, abatement of duty on damaged or deteriorated goods. Section 22 deals with reduction, abatement, of customs duty when imported goods are damaged or deteriorated after importation but before clearance for home consumption. Core provision, simple meaning. If imported goods are damaged or deteriorated at any time before clearance for home consumption, the customs duty payable is reduced proportionately to reflect the reduced value of the goods. In short, you pay duty only on the value of goods in their damaged condition, not on their original value. Key conditions under Section wise. Abatement of duty is allowed only if all the following conditions are satisfied. Goods must be imported. Damage or deterioration occurs after importation. Damage occurs before clearance for home consumption. Assessment is made on the damaged value. Satisfaction of the proper officer of customs. How abatement is calculated. Customs officer determines. Value of goods before damage. Value of goods after damage. Duty is reduced in the same proportion as the loss in value. Proportionate reduction principle applies. Important clarifications. Point. Explanation. Goods destroyed completely. Section 22 applies only to damaged deteriorated goods, not fully destroyed goods. Section 23 applies there. Timing. Damage must occur before clearance, not after. Officer's satisfaction. Abatement is not automatic, subject to verification. Applicable to importers claiming relief due to handling, transit, storage damage. Illustrative example. Assessable value at import 10 lakh रुपए. Customs duty at the rate 10% 1 lakh रुपए. Due to water damage, value reduced to 6 lakhs rupees. Duty payable 10% of 6 lakhs rupees 60,000 rupees. Abatement allowed 40,000 रुपए. Difference between section 20 to section 23. Section. Situation. Section wise. Goods damaged or deteriorated. Section 23. Goods lost or destroyed completely. Practical use in customs practice. Frequently invoked in port handling damage, rainwater damage, storage deterioration. Importer should inform customs immediately. Seek survey inspection. Maintain evidence, photos, reports. Section 23 of the Customs Act 1962 Remission of duty on lost, destroyed or abandoned goods. Section 23 provides relief from customs duty when imported goods are lost, destroyed or abandoned before clearance for home consumption. 1. What Section 23 says, plain language. If imported goods are lost or destroyed or abandoned by the importer at any time before clearance for home consumption, then no customs duty is payable on such goods, or duty already paid can be remitted, subject to satisfaction of the proper officer. 2. Situations covered under Section 23. A. Goods lost. Examples. Goods washed away in sea. Theft or pilferage before clearance. Missing cargo in port warehouse. Duty not payable. B. Goods destroyed. Examples. Fire in warehouse. Natural calamity. Accident during handling before clearance. Duty not payable. C. Goods abandoned. Importer voluntarily relinquishes title to the goods. Usually when goods become uneconomical. Heavy demurrage, low market value. Duty remitted, but abandonment must be before clearance. 3. Important conditions. To claim remission under Section 23. Goods must be imported. Loss, destruction, abandonment must occur before clearance. Importer must prove the fact of loss or destruction. Proper officer must be satisfied. If duty already paid, refund remission allowed. After clearance, Section 23 not applicable. 4. Key explanation, very important. Abandonment of goods must be before clearance for home consumption. Once goods are cleared, duty liability becomes final. Section 23 relief not available. 5. Difference between Section 20 to Section 23. Particulars. Section wise. Section 23. Nature of goods. Damaged but are deteriorated. Lost but are destroyed but are abandoned. Existence of goods. Goods exist. Goods do not exist relinquished. Duty payable. Reduced duty. No duty. Basis. Proportionate reduction. Full remission. 6. Practical examples. Example 1. Lost goods. Goods worth 5 lakhs rupees lost in port fire before clearance. No customs duty payable. Example 2. Abandoned goods. Importer abandons obsolete machinery before filing bill of entry. No duty liability. 7. Important case law principles. Brief. Loss must be proved by importer. Officer's satisfaction is mandatory. Mere delay or demurrage is not loss. 8. Practical tips. CA customs practice. Immediately intimate customs. File written request for remission. Attach survey fire police reports. Abandon goods formally in writing, if applicable. Section 24 of the Customs Act 1962 power to make rules for denaturing or mutilation of goods. Section 24 empowers the central government to make rules allowing imported goods to be denatured or mutilated so that they can be assessed at a lower rate of duty applicable to the denatured mutilated form of the goods. 8. Plain language meaning. Sometimes goods attract high customs duty because of their nature or possible end use. If those goods are rendered unfit for such use by denaturing or mutilation, under customs supervision, they may be charged duty applicable to the altered form, which is usually lower. In short, change the form, change the duty rate, lawfully. 2. What is denaturing mutilation? Denaturing. A chemical physical process that makes goods unfit for their original or prohibited use. Common with alcohol, chemicals, petroleum products. Mutilation. Physical alterations so goods cannot be used as such. Common with textiles, garments, rags, scrap, e.g. cutting garments so they can't be sold as clothing. 3. Legal effect of Section 24. The central government may notify rules specifying which goods can be denatured, mutilated. Procedure. Extent of alteration. Supervision by customs. After proper denaturing mutilation, duty is levied at the rate applicable to the altered goods, not the original goods. Without following rules, benefit not available. 4. Conditions to avail benefit. Goods must be imported. Importer must request denaturing mutilation. Process must be done as per prescribed rules. Process must be done under customs supervision. Goods must become clearly unfit for original use. 5. Practical examples. Example 1. Textiles. Imported garments attract high duty. Importer requests mutilation, cutting. After mutilation, treated as rags. Duty charged at rags rate, lower. Example 2. Alcohol butter chemicals. Imported alcohol denatured under rules. Cannot be used for drinking. Lower duty applicable to industrial alcohol. 6. Why Section 24 exists. Legislative intent. Prevent misuse or diversion of sensitive goods. Allow legitimate industrial use. Balance revenue protection with trade facilitation. 7. Section 24 versus related sections. Section. Subject. Section wise. Abatement for damaged goods. Section 23. Remission for lost, destroyed goods. Section 24. Denaturing mutilation to reduce duty. Section 25. Exemption notifications. 8. Important practical points. CA Import Advisory. Prior approval is crucial. Customs supervision is mandatory. Improper mutilation demand plus penalty risk. Used frequently in scrap, textiles, chemicals, petroleum. Section 25 of the Customs Act, 1962, power to grant exemption from customs duty. Section 25 empowers the central government to exempt goods from customs duty, either fully or partially, absolutely or subject to conditions, when it considers such exemption necessary in the public interest. 1. What Section 25 means? Plain language. The government can reduce or remove customs duty on specified goods by issuing a notification, if doing so serves the public interest, e.g., lower prices, support industry, manage shortages, promote exports. 2. Types of exemptions under Section 25. A. Absolute exemption, Section 25. 1. Exemption is mandatory. Importer cannot opt to pay duty. Customs must apply the exemption. Example. Basic customs duty on life-saving drugs is fully exempt. B. Conditional exemption, Section 25. 1. Exemption applies only if conditions are fulfilled. Importer may choose to comply or pay duty instead. Example. Concessional duty on capital goods subject to end-use condition. C. Special exemption in exceptional circumstances, Section 25. 2. Granted by special order, not general notification. Used in emergency or exceptional situations. Usually case-specific. Example. Urgent exemption for disaster relief imports. 3. Public interest, key concept. The Act does not define public interest, but it typically includes public health, national security, economic policy, trade facilitation, industrial growth, inflation control. Courts generally do not question policy wisdom if public interest is stated. 4. Form of exemption. Issued through official gazette notification. Specifies description of goods, rate of exemption, conditions, if any, validity period, if time-bound. 5. Important provisions clarifications. Option 2, pay duty, conditional exemption. Importer may decline conditional exemption and pay full duty. Not allowed in case of absolute exemption. Burden of proof. Importer must prove compliance with exemption conditions. Non-compliance demand, interest, penalty. 6. Section 25 versus other related sections. Section. Subject. Section wise. Abatement for damaged goods. Section 23. Remission for lost, destroyed goods. Section 24. Mutilation but denaturing. Section 25. Exemption from duty. Section 28. Demand recovery. 7. Practical importance, CA Customs Advisory. Most customs notifications are issued under Section 25. Critical for classification, valuation, duty planning. Errors in exemption claim are a major source of disputes. Always verify. Notification number. Conditions. Effective date. End-use compliance. Art. One-line summary. Section 25 authorizes the central government to grant full or partial exemption from customs duty, absolutely or subject to conditions, in the public interest, through notifications or special orders. If you found this video helpful, please like, share, and subscribe. See you soon.